Pez fans, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Always a pleasure to have you here at Pez HQ. So I've had a number of emails from readers who are wondering about Pez. What does your home workshop look like? We've been building up bikes and doing gear reviews for a long time, and obviously we've got a lot of stuff on site that we use to get this gear ready. So I wanted to do a quick video on a little tour of the Pez home bike workshop. So come on in, let's get rolling. You know, the thing about the home garage workshop is that it's not just a workshop, it's also a place where we park our car. So the car's bringing a lot of dirt and gravel in from the alley. It's making a mess of the floor. I hate it. That's why I keep the leaf blower handy. First thing I do when I come out here, clean off the floor, and I've got a beautiful, smooth working space to tune up the bikes, do whatever I need to do. Alright, so welcome to the shop. Now, it doesn't always look like this. I set it up a little bit so it would look better for visitors. But one of the most important pieces of equipment I recommend right off the top is a nice and comfortable place to sit. I'm going to take a little stool here. I'll take a little stool as you wish. And I want to tell you a little bit about how I got to this place with the shop. So I have had some kind of a home workshop for a number of years, probably like 20, 25, 30 years even. In fact, one of the first places and first bikes I had in my shop was that Rocky Mountain Blizzard way in the back there, which I bought in 1991. And as I started getting into bikes and working on my own stuff, I realized I needed a good space to work on my own stuff. And I wanted to have tools, I wanted to be able to do things myself. But when we moved in here, I realized that there was no other space in the house for me to work on my bikes, and that my little bike sanctuary was going to be out here in the garage. So I sat down and kind of got busy with figuring out how am I going to set this thing up. To give you a little perspective on how I got to where I am, I want to show you what I used to work out of, what it used to be like in the old days when I was starting. So probably the first toolbox that I got was this little guy from Rubbermaid. And it's really small, but it had enough space in it to hold the few essential tools that I needed. Some Allen keys, a small hammer, a couple of screwdrivers. So this is really what I lived out of in the early days. You know, it's got a nice tray up top to keep the small stuff organized. Down below, there, room for a little small mini hammer and a few other things. But as I started to get more involved in tuning my bikes, be more active in building things like replacing cranksets, changing freewheels, all that stuff, the tools were bigger, needed more space to hold them. So somewhere along the line, I got this ancient Craftsman metal thing, probably from my motocross days as a teenager. But we had a bunch of tools, but this really became my big toolbox. So things inside this, the big vice grips, the big file. You might not know that you need one of these, but you do. All of these tools I'm showing you, by the way, I think are essential to the home toolbox. The gigantic crescent wrench. This thing functions perfectly for removing free hub bodies, but this has always worked for me and it'll still work for you. There's a hacksaw in here. All the big stuff lives in this old toolbox, or lived in this old toolbox. And as I got more tools, I needed another one. I needed the blue one, so it's holding more stuff as well. I mean, what have I got in here right now is dedicated things like my chain whip for getting free hub bodies off, some bottom bracket tools. Down here I've got a dedicated section for cutting carbon fiber. As carbon fiber became popular, we had to get special tools for cutting it. So saw guides. This one's from Scott Bikes I got a long time ago, but it works perfectly on 27.2 millimeter seat tubes, handlebars it's great for. This one was an arrow-shaped cutter that came with a Look bike that I had a long time ago. And then I just went down to Home Depot and I bought myself one of these beautiful pipe cutters, which essentially you tighten it around any kind size tube and roll this thing around, and it works beautifully. You need files when you're cutting carbon fiber, so I've got a couple of nice files in here to make sure the edges are smoothed off when I'm done, just for safety and because it just looks way better. It looks pro. But before I got this big workbench, the majority of my tools lived in these boxes. So I kind of got to the point where when I got into this space, I went, I need a workbench, and I was down at Home Depot and I saw that they had a variety of custom workbenches, and I thought to myself, okay, you know what? It's time. I got to buckle down, I got to buck up, and I got to get me one of these things. So I got one, I've moved into it. I want to show you how I've set mine up, and you might get some ideas on how to set yourself up at home as well. So my challenge was, how do I move out of these 3 old toolboxes and into a more dedicated workspace that has everything organized in a more useful manner? Now, obviously I was pretty excited when I was at the store and I saw this workbench with these custom built super thin drawers. I've never actually worked in a space that had these before. These are things that have been around for years. More experienced tool guys have been working on these for a long time, and obviously now I'm in the club. I totally get why. This particular bench, I liked it because it's got 9 different drawers. It's the right height for a workbench. It's about 40 inches high, which is exactly what I wanted to see. And up top, what I did is I set myself up with really a space that doesn't look like it means too much right now, but I haven't fully set this thing up. So a critical thing about any kind of workshop is it's a work in progress for me. And I think it's going to be the same for you. You got to live with the space. You got to figure out what works for you. So up top here is where I keep stuff I'm working on right now, my go-to tools, things I need. My Allen keys, for instance, this great set I've got from Feedback Sports. I've been using this. You've seen this in other videos. This is awesome. I am going to keep you tuned into this. I'll even put a link to this down below because this is a great item to have for anybody. It's got the full range of 6, 7 down. I mean, it's got all the the Allen keys you want in here. But I haven't signed off on this top drawer yet because I've got a lot of stuff in the other drawers. I'm keeping this for stuff that I'm really working on right now. Over here, I've made use of these great trays that you can get anywhere, but they're kitchen organizers or desk organizers. You can buy them online for a couple of bucks, and these things are fantastic for getting things organized. I've got specifically dedicated drawers for my snippers and cutters in here. You may have seen me cut the auto lock in half in one of my earlier videos with these. I'll put a link down below. I've got my screwdrivers in here, dedicated space for pliers, pullers, snippers, all the kinds of stuff that I have amassed over the years, but I need these at some point or other for my bikes. Over here, I'm working on a number of other things. You gotta have some Sharpies in the bin. There's always stuff you're marking off, whether it's a box for storage or something on your bike. Keep some Sharpies handy. If you've got a cat, you may want a cat zoom broom. You can give him a brush anytime you want. I don't know why this thing is in here. I gotta move into the house. Keep your electrician's tape handy. I like it in different colors, white, black. I've got some green and yellow in there. This stuff comes in super handy when dialing in the bikes and making them look cool with different color bar tape. Something else that I think is really relevant is from woodshop grade 10 or 11, I built this particular handle for an application I had, which was using Allen keys, and I couldn't get enough torque on the Allen key. I cut this bar off and I would slide the Allen key into this thing, and all of a sudden I've got a nice big long lever and I can open this thing up. I put up a lot of tight bolts with this. So I've had this for like 40, 45 years, but it's still part of my arsenal. If you're building and working on any kind of a proper tool thing, you're collecting tools and you don't ever want to get rid of them because you don't know when you're going to need them. This little bad boy has been with me for a long time and I've used it a lot over the years. Hammer time. I got the rubber mallet. This comes in really handy for whacking things that are not coming loose on the bike. I've got some other, some normal hammers in here as well. I've got a couple others around, but it's nice to have a drawer. Just, where's my hammers? They're right in there. The rest of these drawers, I am still on a work in progress in these things. I haven't fully set them up, but what I have done, and I think you'll find you're doing the same thing, is what needs to be stored in a place where you can find it. So I've got odds and sods in here, my bike repair kits, I've got tire levers, I've got tube glue, I've got patch kits. It kind of lives in here. So if I need to do some tires, these things are in there. Down at the bottom of this workbench, a couple of deep drawers which I really like. In here is the drill drawer. Okay, so I've got my drill in a case up there, but look at this. I've got drill bits, I've got drill bits, I have got drill bits. And if you watched my video on how I got these stripped out bolts pulled out of this Cipollini, you will not only share my pain, but you'll appreciate why I would have a dedicated drawer to drill bits. I think this is something everybody should have. You know where you can find it. And you got to find a place to store the charger for your blow dryer. Come on, that's where it goes. What about over here on this side? Look, things like stud finders, electric screwdrivers. I've got down here the staple gun. All of these things are completely handy tools, not just for building your bike, but look, the missus is going to want you to put something up in the house. She's going to want you to fix something. Honey, can you take care of this for me? Yes, I can, hun, because I got the tools. They're right here in my shop. Do not leave home without this. A massive jar of grease. Everybody's got to have one. I've got multiple jars of this stuff around. Haven't used this one too much, but I'm going to. Motorex makes a great brand of grease. I'll put a link to this if you want to get some, but there's lots of them out there. Wasn't that an awesome run through the workbench? I know. I'm feeling like I need a cigarette as well. All right, everybody in every home shop needs a vise. This has been my family vise for about 30 years. I have had it with me in all my workshops. I have not bolted it onto this bench yet. I'm getting to that, but it's the perfect size for biking. It's not too big. It bolts in. You can hammer stuff on it. It's perfect for holding things when you're cutting tubes. If you need to straighten anything, you got to have a vise. I'll put a link down below so you can find a good one of these things as well. The central feature, obviously, of the home workshop is going to be your bench. You need a place to store your key stuff. You need a place to get some work done. But there's a lot of other parts that I have amassed over the years, and I need to have them around. So things like down here in this old cabinet, which my wife wanted me to throw out a long time ago, and I begged her to let me keep it because I now use it for storing stuff like my hand wipes, which I need constantly when I'm getting hand grease all over my hands. I've got my muck off chain cleaning kit down here with all the supplies in a bin. I've made use of, I've got my WD-40. Talcum powder, always great to have on hand. You're going to need this when you're putting tires into tubes. This stuff is essential. I've got a Rubbermaid bin down there, which is critical for keeping parts clean. This is all stuff you can pick up, down at Walmart or Target or wherever, but it's all critical stuff to make your shop function as much and as well as you possibly can. Another cabinet that I've had for years that I didn't want to get rid of, and I had to fight Mrs. Pez on this one, but she relented, and I've now got perfect storage in here. I've got bar tapes that I've amassed over the years, tons of them which I'm not ready to get rid of. I've got a whole collection of stems and other bike parts in here. This is the kind of stuff that's relevant to the bikes that we're putting together and we're riding here at Pez. It's a garage. We're not entertaining the Queen of England in here. It's storing bike parts. A couple other things that I've done that I think are really relevant is when I moved into this shop, I had to pack up the rest of my shop into a bunch of big boxes like this one down here. I've got helmets and shoes in there. I've got summer clothing in here. Other big boxes, but the key thing about this is everything's labeled so I know where everything is. I also kept a record of all these boxes and their contents on my phone so I could remember where is that thing that I'm looking for. Over on the other side here, more shelving. But this is more stuff that we're using on a daily basis. So now that my girls are old enough that we're all riding, we've all got our helmets stored out here. We can grab them and go. I've got more tools in here, a great ratchet set. What I did on this shelving unit is I built these shelves. I set them into place specifically to fit things that I needed to get in here. I've got a little open tray of lubes and other stuff that I need just to tune my bike before I get going. I've got tires here, a box of cleaners, a rag, stuff like that. All kinds of practical things that I'm using in here, and I think that's really critical to setting up your shop the way you want it to. Working pretty well. I'm happy with the way it's set up now. I am constantly evolving it. I'm not totally finished with it, but I've got it to a place now where it's going to work for certainly the foreseeable future. If you've got any questions about how I did this, feel free to drop a comment down below or send me an email. I'm happy to offer you my advice on what you might need or a challenge you might have with your own home shop. I will also put some links down below for a number of the items that I've bought in here that I think are great, and I would totally endorse you having them. Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by. I've been happy to show you around the Pez workshop, and enjoy your riding and enjoy your working on your bikes. Pez out.